This video is sponsored by Tokyo Treat and Sakura Co. More on them a little later. The 4.2 Genshin Impact livestream just wrapped up, and I think I speak for everyone when I say it was really exciting. And I think at the top of all our lists is the Archon Folklore. Furina is the Archon. But for many of us, there are just as many questions as there are answers. Is she just another Yelan Xingqiu clone? Does she need a healer? Will she make one of those characters obsolete? Will she be top meta? Will she be dangerous to play? Is she locked to Fontaine characters? All of these top questions, as well as just a brief preliminary build guide, but very, very short on that because that's going to wait for when we actually get to test her, and talk about what we actually can know now and what that actually needs to be tested on in the future. Welcome to Jello Impact, where we build and test every single character to help you decide who you want to wish for and build. Tokyo Treat delivers the most premium Japanese snacks and candies to your door monthly. From the salty, sour to the sweet, discover limited edition Japanese treats that you won't find anywhere else. It was such a treat for my wife and I to enjoy these snacks together. Everything in it were things I have never tried before, such as the delicious Lucky Fish Arar crackers, which are modeled after the good luck bringer fish, the sea bream, and things that reminded my wife of when she herself lived in Japan. This month's box is the Mount Fuji edition. It has a ton of snacks and lasted us multiple TV nights. We really love the peach flavored Kit Kats, the irresistible blueberry filled marshmallows, the seafood and veggie broth ramen, and as a certified soft drink addict, the Decavita vitamin C drink was a perfect and delicious energy boost. Almost every single thing in the box was a unique and delicious experience. Sakura Co. focuses on authentic Japanese sweets, snacks, and tea. They offer 20 delicious snacks, sweets, and drinks from local makers in Japan every month. The family-owned businesses are hand-picked by Sakura Co. and each have dedicated their lives to the art of snack making. This month's selection was incredible. My wife and I were blown away by the quality and the freshness of each snack. The Daifuku mochi were incredibly soft and delicious, as was the sweet potato Danish. You could have told me that these were made this morning and I would have believed you. We also loved the Saitama pear gummies, the walnut mochi, the chestnut cake, and the Japan Sayama tea. I was truly blown away by how good this box was. It was also very special to learn about each snack with the included pamphlet, learning about the process to make each treat and the history behind it. It was also wonderful to receive these beautiful exclusive chopsticks made right in Japan and to be able to collect a brand new dish or utensil every month. Don't forget the code below to get $5 off your first box through my link. And if you end up getting one for yourself, let me know. And let's share snacks and tea on my stream one day. Thanks again for Tokyo Treat and Sakura Co. for sponsoring this video. So let's start off with the question, will she be top meta? And I'm not sure. I know for sure she will create a new type of top meta team. I'm guessing that her plus good healers like Baiju or like Jean, and with synergistic characters and synergistic teams, I'm guessing this will be a new staple core that you can build around. Kind of like a Hyper Bloom core is a really strong core that you can build around. Double Hydro is a core that you can build around. Bennett Kazuha is a core that you can build around. I think that Furina plus a healer, as long as it synergizes with the rest of the team, I think it'll be a new sort of top meta staple core. Will it be better than the other meta cores? We don't know that. If I had to guess, I think it'll probably be, once we flesh out everything involved, like we maybe get some future characters, some future healers that are designed specifically to work with her, some limited 5-star healers that are specifically synergistic with her, then I think that they will take maybe teams to new heights and we'll have a new best team in the game. As for now, I'm guessing that this new team will be a new side gradable option as a new top team, which is really exactly what we want. We don't want a whole power level, new power level. We want more variety, because once you create a whole new power level dimension, now you're restricting gameplay again, whereas like this is the only best team. No, we want lots of top best teams. That's the ideal, and then lots of viable teams as well. So because that's the fun of Genshin Impact, is trying out new different team comps and different playstyles, and I think that Furina will do that. So I don't think that she'll bend the entire meta around her, but I do think she will be part of one of the meta comps and an integral part to those. So is she a Yelan and Xingqiu clone? Kind of. When I first saw her kit, I was kind of disgusted because both Xingqiu and Yelan have 3 coordinated attacks from off field, and Furina also has 3 coordinated hydro attacks from off field. There are a couple differences, but right there, that's already so similar to Xingqiu and Yelan that it's kind of scary. It's like, do you not have any original ideas? Like, what the? Anyway, the difference is she also is an off-field buffer. Unlike Yelan, who is an off-field buff, at least for Furina, all the damage is attached to her skill. So she doesn't need at least to build a ton of energy recharge like Yelan and Xingqiu do. Her burst does the buffing. So she actually does need a ton of energy recharge. But she doesn't have as good hydro application as these two, but she does have some AoE. So that's a little different. You can also switch her into a healing mode, and this doesn't seem all that useful because in the healing mode, you don't retain the buffs and you don't retain the damage. So you're kind of just having a worse Kokomi when she's in healing mode. It seems very useful for the overworld and for casual play, but you pretty much throw that out once you try and actually build synergistic teams. You're going to need a healer anyways. So having a healing mode is really redundant. Now, despite her being a Xingqiu Yelan clone, it's not actually a problem because those synergies that she makes through requiring a healer and essentially making healers become buffers, basically is how it ends up working. It makes the team options and the types of teams that she'll run completely different, or at least very different, or at least with a whole new spin on things compared to Xingqiu and Yelan. And that I think is really, really exciting. Even though I'm maybe a little bit disappointed with the creativity thrown into her kit, it does seem very derivative of Xingqiu and Yelan. I do think that the end result of creating a ton of new team archetypes and a ton of new viable strategies and buffing a ton of older characters, I think that it is very much worth it. I will gladly take a somewhat reductive kit in exchange for a huge variety of increased playstyles and a huge amount of buffed units that were subpar before. So bravo to Hoyoverse overall for this kit design, as long as it, indeed plays out the way I think it's going to play out. So will she be dangerous to play? Does she need a healer? This one is really, really hard to answer before we actually test her. And I think it's going to be very subjective. If we take a recent case like Novelette, he's a character that I said you would want a shielder for some interruption resistance. And other people said you don't need a shielder because you have mobility and you have all this and that. And I said, but you can't dodge, etc., etc. And as it turned out, it's a little bit of both. Sometimes you're fighting enemies that really do feel like they need a shielder, and sometimes you absolutely can get away with it, and it does depend on your skill, but there's also circumstances that just almost necessitate it. When we look at someone like Furina, will she be dangerous to play? Your characters will always be losing HP, and you'll basically be playing with 50% HP. So if you are fighting very strong enemies and you don't have damage mitigation, you don't have a shielder, and you don't have any of that defensive stuff, sure, it could be dangerous. But if you're playing with a really strong healer that's healing a lot, such as maybe Jean or something like that, or you do have some damage mitigation, it might in practice not really matter that much because really good healers generally heal more than you need. It could be that during very, very aggressive bosses, such as the dancers that often will just one-shot you, especially if you're running something like Bennett on the team, then she will make your teams more dangerous. Overall, I think that it'll make your teams like 25% more dangerous, because I think that you won't be playing at 50% HP. You're going to have healers healing back up, but you also won't be playing at full HP. You're going to have Furina taking the characters down. So I think it's going to be about 25% more dangerous to play with Furina on your team, and your mileage may vary. 25% might make the difference between feeling comfy and feeling on the edge, or it might still be comfy, or it might take feeling on the edge to completely off the rails, and it might be horrible for you. So I'm going to say it really depends, and I think it's going to highly depend on the team comp and how competent your healer is and the aggressiveness of the enemies that you're facing. I think it's possible that even though Furina Yelan seems like a really good combo for damage, Furina Xingqiu could be somewhat preferable for that damage mitigation, or Furina Beidou maybe is valued, or maybe it doesn't matter and you just do so much damage that who cares, the enemies just die and melt. We'll see. We'll have to see. Which hydro reactions will she work with? Hyper Bloom, Melt, Freeze, Electrocharge, etc. She is going to work on teams where they value damage dealing buffs, damage bonus. So something like Nilou doesn't value damage bonus. Something like Hyper Bloom sort of values damage bonus. Alhaitham does, like Alhaitham Hyper Bloom, but if you're playing just for the Hyper Bloom damage, then it doesn't value that buff. So like Burgeon, I don't see Burgeon benefiting very well because there's not very many characters on the Burgeon team that do raw damage. I think Furina, Jean, Yelan could be a true staple core for single target damage. You get bigger buffs than Kazuha, you get more damage than Double Hydro, and you don't need the grouping for single target. So I think that could be really huge. For on-fielders, we'll have to see. There's a ton of different on-fielders that could work for that. I also think Sino Quick Bloom will see a boost because he does both raw damage as well as Hyper Bloom damage. So Furina buffing his raw damage could be really very useful. Hyper Bloom with Double Hydro with Furina and Yelan could be very useful because Furina will buff Yelan's damage. Maybe you use Yelan on field so that you can apply Yelan's damage bonus to herself and Furina's damage bonus. Although you could also use Yelan off field and just use Nahida on field because Furina's buff applies to everyone, and then you're gonna get more Hyper Blooms. It's hard to say. There's lots of things that are going on. She doesn't provide enough Hydro on her own to vaporize, but you're gonna she's gonna be so strong in Double Hydro anyways that it's not really a loss that she doesn't have quite as much Hydro application. I think she's gonna be solid in freeze, better than Yelan and Xingqiu because she actually has at least some AoE. You're probably not gonna be able to run Ayaka Shenhe because you're probably gonna want the healer slot in the Shenhe. So I'm guessing it'll be more of a side grade for Ayaka if you don't have Shenhe, and then you have to run Charlotte or Mika or maybe Diona as the healer. I'm not gonna go over every single team. We'll save that for the teams guide, but basically, just for a couple more, like I think Mono Hydra with Ayato or Kokomi, especially with Kokomi, could be good. I think Eula might really benefit from that since she already wants to run something like Mika and really benefits from that damage bonus. Risley and Novelette are going to benefit hugely. I'm not so sure about Linny because his passive wants the enemy to be affected by Pyro specifically, and it gives him a huge damage bonus. When Furina, if she vaporizes or causes a vaporize, she will remove that Pyro aura. So I don't know about Linny. I'm going to try it, but I got my doubts. Noelle seems really interesting. There's a ton of really interesting stuff. We're going to have to test and see what actually ends up working in practice. Mini build guide, artifact sets. I mean, as I predicted, how could I be wrong? Elemental skill damage. This set's going to be your best set. It's not going to be close. Mariachi Band is going to be fine, but she doesn't use normal and charge attacks until C6. So maybe I guess it's a C6 artifact set. Overall, generally not recommended. How much energy recharge? I mean, we don't know for sure. Probably a lot. Similar to Yelan, who loves using Fav and doesn't lose that much damage from it. Furina will likely be the same, but maybe, you know, stuff like Festering Desire will get a new home. Jade Cutter gives HP. We know Furina scales off HP, so that should be good. I'm personally going to be using Fav most of the time, and then maybe if I'm using lots of Hydra or using her with Raiden, then I'll try out the Jade Cutter and see how that goes. But I think I don't have Festering Desire. I think most people are going to use either Festering or Fav. And if you don't use those things, she's probably, similar to Yelan, going to have to use an energy recharge goblet, potentially even with Double Hydro. It's shocking how much energy these characters need. But again, that's something that is variable, and we'll have to test it out. And even when we do test it out, you have to decide for yourself how much your specific team needs, your play style, how many Favs you're using, etc. And finally, we know she provides damage bonus, and we know she gets a lot of damage bonus, so it's possible that an HP goblet could be just as good or even better than a Hydro goblet, similar to Novelette, who is pretty much just as good in HP, Circlet HP, and she wants crit and all that stuff. We'll cover that in the guide. I think that covers people's most burning questions of everything. It covers what I want to know. I'm really excited for her. I don't think she's a must pull by any means, but I do think that she opens up a new variety of top meta teams and opens up viability for a ton of healers to become viable. And you can bet I'll be testing every single team because I build and test every single character. Subscribe if you want to see. I'm going to have a day one guide for Furina the moment she comes out, and I'll have early access, so I'll have tested her fully as I possibly can. I'll be locked in my room for every single second that I possibly can to test every single team. So if you want to know how your character works with Furina, make sure to subscribe and get ready for that guide. In the meantime, watch my video on who are the best pulls for this upcoming patch. Take care. Bye for now.